I ran through the darkened forest, the stars and little light down beneath the canopy. The night was thick and black, and I could barely see, but fear would have to wait. I had no time. I could hear the cannon firing again and again in the darkness. There had to be fighting going on nearby, though I couldn't see it. I hoped fervently that everyone was safe. If I could just make it in time.
Oh.
Felt someone nearby and slowed to a halt. All around me were men wearing the blue jackets of the Shinsengumi, grimacing in pain. It wasn't just a few of them. They'd gathered together in groups, spread out through this part of the forest at the center.
Oh no!
Saito stood, sword in hand, his chest heaving. What's going on? I'd never before seen him so tired.
No.
Beyond Saito stood Amagiri, the demon. I stepped back and a twig snapped beneath my foot. Slowly, deliberately, Amagiri's gaze turned toward me. Nope, not me.
Aha!
I chose to ignore Amagiri and turned instead to Saito.
Saito, there's some trouble. More of it the other way. The Satsuma are like attacking the Fushimi Magistrate office. So, can you like call off the attack you're doing right now and like go back?
He inclined his head slightly in acknowledgement and then turned to Amagiri, his eyes blue slits. What? I thought he just murdered us. I was like, wait a minute! The moment the last word was out of his mouth, he leapt forward with tremendous speed, and his sword flickered through the air, heading straight for Amagiri. At first, I didn't believe what I was seeing. Amagiri had caught the incoming blade with his bare hands and flung it aside. Jesus! Then in the same movement, he made to trap his hand into Saito's unguarded side. He deflected Amagiri's blow with his left arm and struck again with his sword. He dodged to the side, avoiding the sword thrust, but Saito took that split-second opening to launch another attack, driving Amagiri back. His steel shimmered in the night, leaping through the air and snaking its way through Amagiri's defenses to strike at his vitals. So shiny. Game?
Aren't we? Why didn't you just like be like, hey, I gotta go now? Obviously, you can't do that, but if I might.
Yeah, he'd get stabbed in the back as we were running away. Ding dong! The very tip of Saito's sword slid across Amagiri's cheek, and a thin line of blood trickled down his face. He paused a moment to wipe sweat beading off of his forehead.
しかし、その強さはあくまでも人のものに過ぎません。人の身の限界というものを。
What I saw then, I could scarcely believe. On Amagiri's forehead, horns appeared. Great white things, like what you might see in old books or paintings. His hair turned white, like that of a furry, and his eyes began to glow with a strange otherworldly light. When he spoke, his voice rumbled with a terrible power.
この姿を人前にさらしたのは、これ。
Oops.
君の強さに敬意を抱いているからこそ、全力で戦わせていただきます。
Okay, we should go now. Then he leapt toward Saito like a bullet from a gun, closing the distance between them in the blink of an eye. He was far, far faster than he had been a moment before. Saito did his best to keep up with Amagiri's blows, but he seemed slower now. No, Saito wasn't slower. Amagiri was just too fast for him.
それが人並みの限界ですか。
He sounded almost disappointed. Uh-oh. Saito cried out as Amagiri struck his left arm.
Saito!
I was about to run up to him.
近づくな。奴らの狙いはあんただということを忘れたのか。
Okay, he's clearly after murdering you now, though, so...
ここであんたをこの男に連れ去られては、俺は務めを全うできぬことになる。
Yeah, I don't think he's after us right now. And he's like, what? You're still here?
殊勝な心がけです。上役から課せられた命は、君にとってそれほどまでに大切なものなのですね。ならば、手心を加えることこそ、
no.
失礼に当たると
Easy
いうも
mode
の。
would be nice. Amagiri kicked the ground.
No one would be mad at you if you chose easy mode.
Saito tried to swing with one more decisive blow as Amagiri charged toward him, but even so, Amagiri saw right through him. And suddenly, before Saito could block, threw an iron fist punch into him. He ground his teeth and sweat dripped down his forehead. The pain he was feeling had to be incredible. Had Amagiri's blow broken his arm? But he ran toward Amagiri, his sword held high and defiance burning in his eyes.
愚かなことを。
He batted Saito's attacks aside one after another as calmly as if he were waving away flies. Saito was in bad shape. He looked tired, and though he managed to ignore the pain, his arm still clearly hurt him. If he didn't gain the upper hand and quickly, he'd lose to his own fatigue. We should go.
Yeah, right.
Yes, thank God. Let's go.
Saito, we gotta go. Yeah, man.
He frowned. Although he was a man of few words, Saito took things such as missions and orders very seriously. But also, I have new orders,
Yeah,
so there
this
you
is
go.
the order to go.
To him, a retreat would be an incredible disgrace. But
They're waiting for you to come back. I know you don't want to, but you have to retreat. If you keep fighting here, then what will happen to Ino and Yamazaki?
those words seemed to hit the mark. Saito stopped and then slowly lowered his sword, his breathing heavy. This isn't the time!
今俺が果たすべき務めはこの男を切ることではなく。
Yeah, I don't think you could kill him anyway.
Although we were supposed to come back with a whole fleet of men, and we're coming back with one, so that's not great either. His voice was quiet.
One with a now broken arm. So, who are you guys? I mean, why are you always getting in the way?
我々が鬼の一族だということは以前お伝えしたはずですが、鬼の起源についてはどこまでご存知ですか？
It's not the time for a history lesson.
Nothing.
人間たちがこの日の本に住み着くはるか以前から、我々鬼はこの日の本で暮らしていました。ですが人間がこの地で暮らすようになり、我々は次第に里を追われ、山中に隠れ住むこととなったのです。
Sen had told me something about this before. The demon clan asked time and time again for aid from the dominion of man, and time again men turned them down.
風間家の当主風間千景は今回の騒乱を利用し、
Oh, that's it?
各
Okay.
地にちりぢりになった鬼の力を一つにまとめ、この日の本を再び鬼の手に取り戻そうとしているのです。
Oh.
What?
I don't think,
あ
I
んた
mean,
も風間とやらの意見
no!
に賛同している口か。
Terrible.
Amagiri shook his head.
鬼は影の存在で良いと思っています。歴史の表舞台になど出るべきではない。薩摩藩に手を貸してきたのは関ヶ原の戦いの時の縁を頼られてのこと。
Battle of the Eastern Army. Defeated the Western Army. Cool.
私は行動や風間の考えに賛同しているわけではないのです。
What does my father have to do with any of this? Don't tell me father is like Kazuma.
How the fuck do you think we got like this? Did he really want to create a world of demons just like Kazuma?
話はそれだけか。俺は時間稼ぎに乗るつもりなどない。これ以上の無駄話には付き合えんぞ。
His eyes had narrowed to angry slits. He smiled.
彼の力量に免じ、この場は見逃しましょう。
Thanks.
With a small shudder, Amagiri's horns disappeared and his hair changed back to its normal human, well, relatively normal human color.
一体どういうことだ。
私は風間たちの目的には賛同できないのですよ。そのようなことに利用されようとしている彼女には同情さえ感じます。
Thanks.
I wasn't sure what to think of Amagiri. Didn't seem that his intention was to be kind to us, and yet he was allowing Saito and his men, who are dead, but sure, and myself to leave. At the very least, it seemed he had some sense of justice.
とりあえず、この男はこれ以上我々と戦うつもりはないようだ、雪村。負傷した大使の中で歩けぬほどの重傷を負った者はいたか。
Probably. No, none of them, surprisingly.
奉行所へ戻る。
I mean, if there had been, they would have been helping, I would assume. So
They all just
yeah.
formed a circle and were like, fight, fight.
Jesus Christ.
Right.
We had just turned to leave when he spoke one last time.
風間は私よりもはるかに強い力を有しています。
That's
So
fine.
true.
I'll have a gun to do that.
人の手で彼女を守りきるのは無理でしょう。今後は別行動を取ることを勧めます。
And with that, he disappeared into the night like silent mist. Saito stood stock still for several moments where Amagiri had disappeared, his gaze fierce.
We still gotta go.
He didn't seem to hear me.
Saito, are you good? Did you like super get hurt?
Did you get brain damage, my guy?
無種の相手に。
Huh?
His voice was so quiet I could barely hear him. After several more seconds of silence, he slowly raised his head.
何でもない。奉行所へ戻るぞ。時間がないと言っていただろう。
We voiced it like a half hour. Yeah.
What had Saito been thinking about? Was he really alright? Pensive silence was nothing new for him, but I'd felt something different from him this time. Frustration, perhaps? Oh no. Your turn to read, because I'm dying.
Okay. As we ran back, the rustling of leaves resounded through the night streets.
待て。
When we'd reached the hill, Saito stopped suddenly in his tracks.
What's the matter? Everything's on fire. That's the matter.
He watched as below the hill the town of Fushimi was within eye distance from the top and was lit ablaze with a roaring flame.
あれはまさか。伏見奉行所か。
We took too long!
I gasped at the sight.
No!
The Shinsengumi were protecting the magistrate, but now it was on fire! Inoue and Yamazaki were there.
薩長軍に火をかけられたか。あるいは撤退する際に自ら
Why
火を
would we have set it on fire?
Pretty weird. I could see a color of bitterness in Saito's.
Wait
In
a minute.
Saito's the well-being of his comrades.
Wait a minute.
If the Fushimi magistrate were to fall, then it would mean the Shinsengumi were now driven from the town they spent 4 years protecting. For Saito, a man who had always held his duty to the Shinsengumi above all else, this must have been the most regrettable feeling. I struggled to find meaningful words to say, so instead I just hung my head low.
まだ負けたわけではない。幕府が新選組が健在でこの俺が武士である限り、奴らとは必ず刀を交えることになる。
His expression warped and I could swear that I could hear his teeth grinding. Saito took one last look down at the burning scenery of Fushimi below. Then,
雪村、我々はこれから大坂城へ向かうぞ。あそこには総大将の慶喜公、そして松本先生や近藤局長、宗司がいる。おそらく副長や他の大使たちもそこにいるはずだ。決してはぐれぬようついてこい。
You got it.
Sorry, I was thinking. Where did Hijikata go?
He went to... Was he taking on the cannons directly? I don't remember.
Because the front line was Nagakura, Harada, and Shimada. Wow. Saito and I led the rest of his men toward Osaka Castle. No sooner than we had reached the base of the mountain, however, we encountered an enemy patrol.
Oh my
Oh.
goodness. That happened at the same time as someone's phone vibrated. That was alarming.
Choice.
Oh. Ah!
Several gunshots echoed through the forest. I wasn't sure if they were an actual attack or just a warning.
どうやら囲まれているようだな。
Ah!
The crank of a gunshot sounded again.
Crank.
I
That
thought that
crank.
was a weird word.
That crank gunshot. Whew.
The crack. Right up the crack. Up a gunshot.
声を出すと居場所を蹴取られるぞ。
I'm sorry, it happens automatically every time a loud noise happens. You got it though.
I shrunk down as small as I possibly could and held my hands desperately over my mouth.
もう少しで日が沈む。そうすれば向こう
Will
の持つ
set
役
soon.
に立たなくなる。
Wh-
It
It was
looks
nighttime before.
like the middle of the afternoon.
What? Sorry.
The gunfire had scared me so much I got tired. But if I made too much noise, then I could endanger Saito and the other Shinsengumi.
And then we just sat here for hours.
Eventually, the sun did indeed set, and the forest fell into darkness. The gunshots slowed, then stopped. Suddenly, it was very quiet.
これだけ暗くなれば狙いをつけるのは難しいだろう。暗闇では卵目にも時間がかかる。敵方の目を盗んで下山するなら今のうちだ。
Yeah, let's go.
We stepped out of the thicket we'd been hiding in and headed out down the mountain. Ah!
Ah!
No, that was just me. That wasn't me trying to take the line. We'd been walking for long. God, we hadn't been walking for long when the guns started again, likely because of our footsteps.
Yeah.
This time, however, they seemed to be shooting anywhere and everywhere, not directly at us.
What a waste of bullets. What the hell? Can they even see us?
It seemed Saito had been right about a loss of precision once night had fallen. They could see shadows moving and hear our footsteps, but between the darkness and the trees, actually finding us was proving difficult.
We might actually be able to join up with the rest of the men at this rate.
そうだな。
一体誰と合流するつもりだ。
Fuck. Well, we're dead.
虫けらが何人集まったところで、さしたる力にはなり得ん。
Why are you here? It was him!
久しぶりだな、雪村の娘。いや
Bitch, if you can't even fucking remember my name, you can't be my husband. That's how it works. That's the law.
まだそのようなひ弱な連中と行動を共にしているのか。
You!
Of all the times we could have encountered Cosmo, why now? I didn't realize I had been frozen to the spot by
What happened?
Stepped between Kazuma
What
and myself.
happened to quality assurance for Saito's route? Hello? What the fuck?
あんたは下がっている。
As he spoke, Saito drew his sword. Saito...
But
いいから下がっていろ。
There was steel in his tone this time.
俺と戦うつもりか。こいつはいい。
that wasn't a good enough
戦
evil
の
laugh.
最中に貴重な女鬼を死なされてはたまらんと思い奪い取りに来た。貴様ごときがこの俺とまともに切り合えるとでも思っているの。
He chuckled again as he drew his own sword. Damn. Kazuma's hair turned white.
I feel
It's
like we
over.
didn't get to see them go full demon in any of the other routes.
Yeah, I
this
don't
is
think so.
weird. Saito's too powerful, apparently. Shit.
He looked almost godly, like a lion.
Okay, cool it.
貴様は以前この俺に居合とやらを見舞おうとしたことがせっかくあの時見逃してやったというわざわざ死にに来る
He gets so quiet sometimes.
Yeah. It wasn't just how he looked, though. This dude's desire to kill was fiercely radiating. Amagiri had said that Kazuma was even more powerful than he was, and Saito had been clearly outmatched by Amagiri. Just watching from afar makes me understand that this man knew what he was talking about. Kazuma possessed powers far beyond what even someone like Saito could hope to fight against. So why? Saito made the first move. His sword raised high over his head. Why would you go... Anyways, charged forward and brought it down toward Kazuma's right shoulder. But when the sword reached its destination, Kazuma was simply gone. Saito snapped his head around looking for his opponent. A silver blade flew through the night toward Saito.
Oh. Uh-oh.
I heard the horrible wet sound of a blade passing through flesh, and blood spattered onto the ground. Saito grunted and swung his sword back toward Kazuma, but again he was cut only air. Yep. The demon darted around behind him, his sword glistening with gore. Saito is so dead. More blood dripped to the forest floor. Saito ground his teeth, his eyes wide with pain, but he kept his feet and tried desperately to match Kazuma's attack. But his foe was too fast, and as soon as Saito had found him, he had disappeared or struck again.
Just keep spinning in a circle, that might help. Oh my god.
The night air was filled with grunts of pain and the sickening hiss of steel through flesh, and his men are doing nothing.
Jeez!
Every inch of his clothes were soaked in blood, but still Saito glared at Kazuma with a fiery hatred. You bastard! How dare you!
Avenger Captain, take this!
Two of the men who'd been watching leapt toward Kazuma as Saito fell back.
よせ、お前たちには無理だ。
No, you guys suck!
Kazuma's sword shimmered and the two men fell to the ground. He didn't even blink. His skill with the sword was nothing short of superhuman. His blade moved too fast for my eyes to catch.
二人がかりできてこのざまなんという脆い生き物
We're what? What did you say?
悔しそうな顔をして
I like to assume that nobody hears anything that he's saying.
Saito said nothing and tightened his blood-stained hand around the hilt of his sword. He ran toward Kazuma, all of his strength behind this desperate attack. Kazuma's blade sliced across his body and blood rained down onto the dirt.
Like, this game has a way of making me, like, we've been using the guide the entire time, and yet I still feel like I did something wrong for us to have gotten to this point.
Uh-huh. He still stood, but blood loss and fatigue were taking their toll, and even I could see he was getting slower. Nonetheless, his hand stayed clasped around his sword, even if his arms could no longer lift it. Even against Armaguchi, he hadn't been beaten so completely. I know he had just told me to stay back, but like...
Saito! Please, you have to stop! I'll just go with him, it's fine. Then he'll leave you and your men
こ
alone.
んな鬼が助け舟を出してくれているぞ。素直に甘い。
Shut your mouth!
この後どれだけ切り合ってもこの俺の優位は揺るがぬ。それに気づかぬほど間抜けでもあるまい。なに、ここで逃げたところで黙っていれば誰にもは女鬼の護衛を仰せつかっていたが力及ばず奪い去られた。
I looked up at Saito, my eyes pleading. Kazuma's words were hardly subtle, but if Saito did leave me behind, I was sure no one would blame him.
Right, if he comes back in this state?
Right?
人の目がなかったとしても貴様に屈するつもりはない。彼女も俺の部下もこの手でこの剣で。
そのボロ切れのような体と生倉刀。哀れすぎて何も言えんな。負け犬なら負け犬らしく惨めに尻尾を巻いて逃げ出せばいいもの。
But Saito made no move to leave. His eyes burned with fury even as the rest of him bled and slumped.
Why did they capitalize fury in this sentence?
もしここで逃げ出せば俺の心の中にある大切なものを裏切ることになる。
Oh no.
大切なものを裏切ることになるときたか。
No!
Uh-oh.
He laughed as he drove his sword into Saito's body.
その大切なものとは何だ。ちっぽけな誇りか。犬の餌
Oh
に
no! Dog, how is he supposed to answer your questions if you're doing this shit? Hello? I don't think you understand how this
矮
works.
小な生き物が何を大切だと抜かす。
A moron. How is he a fucking romance interest?
He no longer had even enough strength to lift his arms and block Kazuma's attacks.
No! Stop it, bad man!
I couldn't stand to just sit and watch, so I unsheathed my kodachi.
Oh, we're about to embarrass ourselves real bad.
And I charged straight for Kazuma. You know, but like...
邪魔だ。
Ah!
He just kicked us! Ah!
Kazuma saw me in the corner of his eye and kicked me to the floor, and I couldn't even buy Saito time. Just then I watched as Saito's body slumped and his body dropped to the ground. From here it seemed like he was still breathing, but at this rate it's only a matter of time before he could lose enough blood to die. Then a tiny vial dropped from Saito's pocket, twinkling against his kimono. Twinkle, twinkle. Oh no! That's... It was a bottle of the water of life!
持ち水か。貴様それをどうするつもりだ。
Saito lifted his bloody face to glare at Kazuma. Then...
こうするに決まっている。
They really all gonna take this shit.
With his last bit of strength, he grabbed the bottle.
We can't stop him because he'll just die. We're stopping him!
Goodbye, Saito!
Uh-oh! You don't need that shit. It's nasty, even without the water of life, Saito. You're so strong. You're definitely dying, but you know, you got this, maybe. He's like, I appreciate the thought, but you're an idiot.
ありがたい。今この男に勝利する方法は他にはない。
Maybe you should have taken that before you're on the verge of death. You're
Right?
gonna do it. Saito popped the lid off the bottle and he gulped the contents of the bottle.
Saito, no!
I screamed so desperately it strained my throat. The next instant, the scars all over Saito's body began to regenerate.
Saito's body. Whoa!
And then there stood a furry, his hair shimmering white.
The hesitation to call him a furry was so strong. You were like, I want to say it properly, but we're too deep in this hole.
I feel like I'm betraying him. He seemed surprised by the sudden changes on his body, but just seeing his cuts and gashes to heal, he was renewed with a confident energy.
まがいものの鬼となってでもこの俺に立ち向かおうとするか。貴様には何の誇りもないのだな。
Saito's expression didn't change.
Who even are you now? Oh.
With a slow hand, he wiped the dried blood from his face, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet and calm.
何とでも言え。これが俺にとっての誇りの
You'll never
新選
understand
組が彼
honor.
女を守ると決めたなら、たとえ羅刹となってでも守り抜いてみせる。
He lifted his sword into a fighting stance. That sort of attitude was just what I would have expected from Saito, but for him to become a fury simply because the Shinsengumi had ordered him to protect me is fucking terrible. I turned him into a monster.
I did this.
これはいい。貴様は新選組のためなら人としての生すら捨てるつもりか。己の意志も考えも持ち合わせぬ。ただの犬だな。
犬で構わん。己が正しいと信じた者に命を捧げられれば本望だ。
正しいと信じたもの。落ち目の幕府と共に消えゆく時代錯誤の老子集団がか。
なんだと。
Saito threw himself toward Kazuma in the same breath, his words almost a snarl. The demon deflected his attack with ease and smiled back.
何度でも言ってやる。幕府はすでに消え失せ。貴様ら残党もこの戦で滅び去る運命。落ち水羅刹となったところで貴様の持つ刀にはもう何の意味もない。意地だの誇りだのとわけのわからん世まいごとを抜かす武士とやらの時代は終わったのだ。
黙れ。
He struck again and again, and it seemed that had closed the gap between them, at least somewhat. Bit by bit, Saito's well-aimed blows drove Kazuma back. The tension between them was almost palpable, like the air before a thunderstorm.
God dang it.
From time to time, Kazuma landed a blow on Saito, of his own. Yes, but
Yes.
those wounds closed almost immediately thanks to his new fury blow.
貴様がまがいものの鬼になり果てるとは思わなく、せめてこの程度には力が拮抗していなくても
No one can hear you.
本気を出すとするか。
Just when Kazuma shouted that.
Shouted?
おやめなさい。
Oh,
Bro, a familiar voice echoed through the night.
天霧。
Amagiri's actually the coolest. How come this guy gets around but Amagiri doesn't?
Right?
薩摩藩の方があなたを呼んでいますよ。
人間ごときが俺に命令だと。会いたいのなら貴様から出向けと伝えておけ。
ここはお戻りください。今薩摩藩といさかいを起こすわけにはいかない。あなたも分かっているでしょう。
He snarled and slammed his sword back into its scabbard.
まがいものの番犬よ。しばらくの間、我が妻を
Hello? I didn't agree to this.
非力な貴様に命じること自体が不毛だと思う。いつか必ずその女鬼を奪いに行く。
Why aren't we better at fucking fighting? I want to stab him so bad.
And with that, he was gone. Amagiri's face told me he wanted to say something, but instead he turned and disappeared into the forest after his companion, and once again, we were plunged into silence. For several long moments, Saito stared after the two demons, saying nothing, though I could sense a tumult of emotion behind that placid face. He betrayed none of what it might be. With a shrug, his white hair melted back into its original color, and the red went out of his eyes.
夜が明ける前に山を降りるぞ。また厄介な連中がやってくるかもしれん。
His voice and manner were as they had always been, suggesting nothing of the ordeal he'd just been through. I felt my heart rise to my throat, and I turned away before the sight of him made me burst into tears.
Right?
Sanan and Heisuke had already given up their humanity to become furries.
He won't do it for Heisuke! He'll do it for Saito!
And, they said Sanan and Heisuke. I'm sorry, Heisuke, but maybe they shouldn't have put your name with his.
Oh, that's so funny.
Now Saito has joined them. What am I supposed to do anymore?